Hey, it's Nick. I just wanted to go through a couple little areas of improvement that I'd really like to work on from a movement and stunt perspective. Figured I would just show you the way some of these sequences are looking in the game itself, and just point out what I don't like about them, and then show you how we filmed them, just so you can get a good sense of how all these pieces fit together, so that we can determine how to make some of these movements look better. So, as you're about to see. One of my biggest kind of beefs with the way that the sequences look is when the zombies attack, they're just not that intimidating. The movements are not very intimidating. They run at you and then they stop and then they bite at you and their arms go at you, but they don't lunge. And I want them to be able to lunge towards the player and kind of like a leopard would just jump towards you, and then they would have to spring back, and obviously the actor would have to land back on the treadmill, which would not be running, by the way. But they just do not. It's not frightening enough. So you'll see what I'm talking about here. So see how they just run at you, and then they just kind of pause and hesitate before they attack. It's just not scary. Whereas I think if they were able to actually fly towards you and then snap backwards, that would make it a lot more frightening. And another thing is shot reactions. So when the zombies get shot, they just kind of react. Their bodies their arms go up and they fly backwards a little. As you can see. It's actually really hard to see because of all the blood, but which we're going to tone down in the next version. But so the shot reactions and the attacks, I think, need the most amount of work. So to put this in context, I'll show you how we film, and I'll just kind of walk you through the entire process of a sequence. So we typically shoot all of the sequences in sets. So we shoot one take where the actor gets on a green screen and then does a running sequence, and then does an attack sequence, and does a shot reaction sequence, and then does a death sequence. And then in the video game, we take all these sequences and we pair them together, and that's what you just saw. So I'll just show you how we film it. So the actor gets on a green screen and then films the running sequence for about 30 seconds or so. They just run for a little while. And in order to make sure that these sequences all sync together when we put them in the game engine, we have the actor stop and return to what's called a base pose. So here the actor's in a base pose, and every single sequence is bookended with a base pose. So everything starts in a base pose and ends in a base pose. So this allows us just this one frame of reference. So when we're syncing them together, we sync in and out of this base pose. So actor's in the base pose and holds it for a little while, and then is about to do some attack movements. Or no, these are shot reactions, yeah. So does shot reactions, and as you can see, they're kind of limp and not very dynamic, and he just kind of throws his shoulder back. And it's obviously limited because he's not on ropes or anything, but if there was a way for his body to snap backwards and for him to land back on the treadmill, like right in place, again, back to that base pose, that would be really cool. If there's just a more dynamic way for him to look like he's getting shot, that would be great. So we shoot a few shot reactions in a row, and we do like a couple alternatives. And again, as you can see, the actor goes in and out of his base pose. This is his base pose, so he's completely lined up. And every action that's performed starts and ends with a base pose. So now here are the attacks. So like I was saying before, the attacks I think could be a lot more intimidating if the actor was able to fly towards the screen, if he was able to just like jump and kind of snap towards the screen and then fly backwards and snap back in place, like snap into the base pose. If the actor was able to do that, and for his feet to leave the ground and for him to come at the screen more, I think would make it a lot scarier and make it just so much more dynamic. But again, in order to pull it off properly, the actor would have to fly towards. Oh, that was the death sequence. But just going back to the attack sequences, in order for it to work, the actor would have to fly towards the camera and then snap back into the base pose. And again, there's the death sequence, and it's been pretty simple. The last shoot, we just had people die by falling backwards because it was difficult to have them die falling forwards because it was hard to put the pad in front of the treadmill because the treadmill is kind of a lot to clear. So I'm sure when we're on set we'll figure that out. But even the death sequence I think could be better and more dynamic because the actor just has to just jump and he doesn't really fly backwards that much. It's just not that great looking. I think similarly as the other two poses or the other two sequences, if we had some sort of system or harness that could make the actor fly backwards and make it a better fall, I think that would be great. So I mean, I'm thinking the harness system would probably help us in all cases, but wanted to just give you the overview and show what the set looks like and like that, just so the wheels can start spinning and we can make these sequences look awesome. Thanks a lot.